Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Now, is it just me, or has it been too long since we had some Primarch talk around here? That's right, today we are talking Primarchs. And not just Primarchs, Emperor of Mankind too. Oh yes, today we are taking a look at the first time Ferrus Manus met his brother Vulkan, with the Emperor and Ferrus discussing Vulkan as they watch him in battle. Two of my favourite Primarchs and the Emperor of Mankind. Oh man, this is going to be a good one. Spoiler warning to begin, the events we are discussing today are from the short story Mercy of the Dragon by Nick Kime. And as always, I really recommend you read the story for yourself first, as that's the best way to enjoy the lore. Not only that, but we help to support the Great Black Library and Games Workshop. And I've got to tell you guys, this one is one of the best short stories I've read. It really is. Not only do we get a unique look at the relationship between Vulkan and his father the Emperor, but the Emperor's relationship with Ferrus and Vulkan. I will of course put a link to the short story on the Black Library website in the description as always. But seriously, if you haven't read it, it's only like £2.50. What on earth are you waiting for? Go read it, then come back to the video. But with that said, let's jump straight in. Now this story splits its time between the heat of a battle and Vulkan speaking with his father the Emperor back home on Nocturne before leaving for the Great Crusade. And I'll definitely go over this conversation in depth another day, but Vulkan is very concerned about leaving his homeworld to be a warlord. He's a maker, not a destroyer. And he asks about his brothers. Are they even like him? Could he ever feel a bond of fraternity with them? And the Emperor merely smiles at this and says, "Let me tell you of Ferrus." The Gorgon grinned, an altogether ugly expression on such a grizzled face. "He is ferocious," he said, his voice as gritty and harsh as his appearance. His black armour was shorn to the bare ceramite in places, though the scorch marks caused by fire barely showed. "The way you described him, I thought you did not expect a warrior," said the Emperor, his gilded panoply gleaming. He stood upon a blasted hillock, not that he needed the vantage to look imposing. His stature and power spoke for themselves. Despite the battles, he remained pristine, as radiant and terrifying as a nuclear sunrise. "I expected a blacksmith, but he is a destroyer." That's an interesting remark by Ferrus here, expecting a blacksmith and not a warlord. It's not so much that that is Vulkan, because we know Vulkan is very much a reluctant general, but it's that the Emperor has described Vulkan that way to Ferrus. He clearly hasn't spoken of the tremendous warrior Vulkan is, as all the Primarchs are, and we can infer this from Ferrus's surprise at seeing Vulkan in battle. He's clearly spoken of Vulkan, the human for lack of a better term. He's spoken of Vulkan's personality, and to me this is worth mentioning because what is it that makes Vulkan so unique amongst his brothers? His defining quality, his humanity. Much of the outer lands beyond the major cities of Ranknar had been reduced to ash. A bombardment lasting several days had softened up the native defences, but had seen the same forces dug in instead of broken as the Emperor had hoped. The Imperial assault, when it came, swept across all 6 continents as relentless as a hurricane. Still, the Ranknar had endured, buoyed by their perverse faith, the reason for the Imperium's proclamation of extinction. And so the Emperor had unleashed his dragon, and the lands had burned. Only then, slowly swallowed by fire, had the Ranknar showed any signs of defeat. "I thought the Wolf King had fury," said Ferrus, admiring the spirit of his newfound brother. "But this, where did you find him?" "A death world," said the Emperor, his piercing gaze seeing more and ranging farther than any other on both the battlefield and second battle line where he stood with his son, Ferrus Manus. one consumed by fire. Ferrus gave a snort of laughter. They watched from the blasted hillock the troops and armoured divisions arrayed before them and ready for the Gorgon's command. His warriors, his iron hands. The dragon led a company of them, and several cohorts of army auxilia. The scent of engines and hot metal from the idling artillery and battle tanks wafted over the mustering, but petered out and was swallowed up by the stink of sweat and death by the time it reached the battle less than 100 metres away. Ferrus folded his silver arms restive. They shimmered with an uncanny lustre, the metal of their forging as miraculous as it was mysterious. A massive warhammer lay against one armoured shoulder, a gift from Fulgrim, and one he desired to bloody again. For now, he would do as his father ordered. He would watch, and let the dragon wreak havoc. Ferrus suspected it was not only his newfound brother who was being tested this day. An interesting thought from Ferrus there, that perhaps he is being tested as well as Vulkan. In what way though? Perhaps how he interacts with his newfound brother? Ferrus's personality can be abrasive at the best of times. Or more likely how Ferrus reacts to being kept on the sidelines whilst a brother led the field of battle. And a more inexperienced brother at that. Ferrus's temperament was a little hot-headed to say the least. That seems more likely to me. Draconic in both aspect and temperament, he said, alluding to the savage scalloped warplate worn by the dragon. You taught him much of your craft, Ferrus? Asked the Emperor. None, in truth. He needed no help in that regard. When I reached the forge, he was gone and the armour with him. The Emperor smiled, as if pleased with his work. Your assessment? Overly flamboyant, but it appears to serve well. Him, not his armour, Ferrus. I love that line. Yeah, you can just imagine the Emperor rolling his eyes as he talks to his son. I say it often, but it's little moments like these that truly show us the human side of the Emperor. A raised eyebrow and a grunt of acknowledgement preceded the Gorgon's reply. He fights like a Medusan earworm. Are they all like that where he came from? No. He is unique, as are you. His silver fingers clenched and unclenched without Ferrus realising. He nodded. He is impressive, he admitted, then turned disdainful. But Russ and Horus, even Fulgrim, they match his prowess. I see nothing special about him. You will. The Emperor paused abruptly, and the Gorgon felt his hackles rise. They are opening the gates. Ferrus hid his unease, remaining bullish. Then they are as foolish as they are blind. A sortie is insane. They don't know when they are beaten. Does any beast when cornered? They risk annihilation, said Ferrus, as the gigantic city gates did indeed open. Desperate men perform desperate acts. I feel fear in them. A fearful enemy attacks without restraint. This will be costly for us. A rust-red mist gathered around the opening, obscuring whatever was coming through. They are all soldiers, and know the risk. Be wary of profligacy, my son. Life is not so cheap as you might think. The ruddy fog parted, and what stood before the gate stopped the Gorgon's reply dead. His eyes widened. The ground shook. Ferrus swung his warhammer into both hands. Now can we intervene? The Emperor had already drawn a glittering golden sword. Its edge burst into flames. Yes, now we can. Oh man, what a point to end it on. The Emperor and Ferrus Manus about to wade into battle. What an awesome sight that would be. But what a great passage that was. It really helps to solidify my belief that Ferrus was definitely one of the Emperor's preferred Primarchs, and makes the Emperor's summoning of the blazing figure of Ferrus within the webway just all that more poignant and touching. The more snippets we get to see of Ferrus Manus, the more we get to see an improvement in the character of the Primarch, who in my opinion has suffered more than most from bad writing, And of course his death at the start of the heresy certainly didn't help matters either. There's a fantastic line later in the story where Ferrus finds himself worried and concerned for Vulkan, a brother he hasn't even properly met yet. But that's what makes these great Crusade era backstories just so great to read. We get to see more of the personalities that makes up these amazing characters. I really hope we get to see more of Vulkan and Ferrus together in the future, and the Emperor. But as always, what did you guys think? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I love to interact and read them. But that's it for today. A huge thank you to all my subscribers. Your support really means a lot to me, it truly does. And if you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.